All right. Hey, welcome back. As I promised last episode and kind of got into a little too much last episode, we'll be talking about complex PTSD and complex stress disorder. Just because the difference between complex stress disorder or traumatic stress disorder and PTSD is that complex, the complex one, which I will from now on refer to as CTSD, it has a recurring event implied in its diagnosis. So it wasn't one event that just happened one time and affected you one way with a defined set of triggers, but it was an event that was repeated over and over again, slightly different, and the number of triggers can be very numerous. Another episode of this podcast will get a little bit more into the effect of triggers in reliving, but as for this episode, we're going to focus on just the dehumanization of complex traumatic stress disorder, because what happens in a sense is that this thing, repeated sexual abuse, being tortured, being repeatedly humiliated, these things are, in a sense, dehumanizing a person. And so there are negative effects of dehumanizing people, obviously. And those negative effects are really hard to move out of, not to invalidate the effects of PTSD and ASD, but in a new and different way, in a difficult way, sufferers of CTSD are having to work against countless factors, and likely they aren't aware that these factors come from that repeated abuse. A lot of times, again, I'll get into this in a later episode, but people will face an event, an occurrence, something really hard to go through, and they will not really substantiate it. They'll invalidate it, and that leads into a lot of the effects of CTSD, just in that they don't understand that this is something they're not guilty of. So this disorder has more stresses than PTSD, and it's a really hard definition of identity with oneself, because they are going through this thinking, oh, I don't know who I am because I've been treated like I'm not a person. Am I a person? Do I have the same rights? Do I have the same longings and heart and desires? And that is a really difficult space to walk into as a person. I can only imagine. I can't even imagine. Something that I've never experienced, and something that's really deeply related to this is just there's a real lack in boundary awareness and just personal identity in relation to other people. And it's really scary to just go through life thinking that, oh, I don't know how close I should be to other people because I wasn't treated like people ought to be treated, frankly. And yeah, that sense of numbness is also present in depression, but it's different in this sense because the numbness comes from this dehumanization, as I've discussed, where you are not treated with the dignity of a person, with the honor of a person. And so you numb yourself to the shame that that would bring. And it would really, I think, detriment an individual. And that sucks. And allow that to suck. Allow that to convict you and hurt you, because it's hurting someone else too. And yeah, I hope that you move forward in this with empathy, as I've discussed several times. I just allow it to suck, because the person going through it doesn't want you, in most cases, to say, oh, that's a bummer, but it's okay, it's not as bad as this. I think they want you to say, I can't imagine what you're going through. See you guys next time.